Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla, and our story this week is called Chased by a Rhinoceros. Stuart. He was a missionary in the big country of Africa, and one of his jobs was to go all over Africa to the different villages. He would check the schools and the little churches. He had a busy job. Well, he never carried a gun with him when he went out on his missionary work. He knew that God was with him and the angels were with him, so he never carried a gun. Well, he was going through the jungle areas, just on a small little path that wound its way, a river on one side. And far in the distance, he could see a big row of trees. Well, as he was walking along, it was a beautiful day, and suddenly heard something. It was like something was in the bushes. He looked around to see what it might be. Well, Africa has some very big animals. And resting in the tall grass was a full-size rhinoceros. Well, if you've ever gone to a zoo, you might have seen a rhinoceros. They are huge, and they weigh a ton. And the missionary knew that they were very, very dangerous. When he looked back to see what was in the grass, he saw that rhinoceros, and the rhinoceros' nose was going. You know, rhinoceroses have a very, very good nose for smelling things. They have an excellent scent of smell. But they have very poor eyesight. Well, that rhinoceros, when he smelled what he thought was his enemy, which in a lot of cases, I suppose, a human person would be an enemy of a rhinoceros. He kept smelling, and the more he smelled Stuart, the smell of a human person coming across the breeze. And it made him so mad. That rhinoceros, he got himself up out of the grass, and he started running as hard as he could go. Well, you would think, since a rhinoceros was so big and so heavy, that they couldn't go very fast. But that wasn't the case. Rhinoceroses are known to even run faster than horses, and they can catch a horse and kill them. Well, Stuart took one look at that rhinoceros, and he could hear the rhinoceros's feet going stomp, 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 as fast as they could go. And he looked around, and he saw that row of trees off in the distance. And he thought, I can't make it, but I have to try. So he started running as fast as his body would carry him. He didn't even dare to turn around and look to see if that rhinoceros was getting closer, because those big feet of the rhinoceros, They were making big noise. Stomp, 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 stomp. Stuart just kept running. He knew God was with him, but it was frightening to be running from a rhinoceros. And he knew that he wasn't going to make it to those trees. He didn't know what to do. He just kept going, and then he heard a voice. "Your hat," it said loudly. "Your hat." Well, African missionaries all wear big helmets on their head to protect themselves from the sun and the heat and the animals. When he heard that call, "Your hat," he reached up with his hands and he threw his hat on the ground. Now that sounds like an unusual thing to do. And he kept running. Well, that rhinoceros was getting quite close to him when he came upon that big hat. And the rhinoceros, he smelled of it, but he couldn't see what it was. So he took his head. You know, rhinoceroses have horns, very sharp horns. And he grabbed that hat and he threw it up in the air. And when it came down, he threw it up in the air. And he kept doing that. And then he got right over top of it. And you could only imagine that he thought, "This is my enemy. I'm going to get him." And he took those big feet of his and he started stomping on top of that hat. And he mashed it till it was oodles of pieces all over the ground. He stuck his head down and he smelled it. He couldn't see it there. So I'm sure he thought, "I've killed my enemy." And the rhinoceros was very pleased with himself. And he turned around, and he went running right down to the river. Well, rhinoceroses love the water. And he got in the water, and it was so cool. And of course, soon his anger went away. Well, the missionary, he had turned around, and he saw the rhinoceros running away toward the river. He very carefully made his way back to where that hat was 100 pieces all over the path. He picked up a couple of the pieces. He knew that he couldn't put it back together, but as he was looking at the pieces of his hat, he thought, "This is my proof." And he took those pieces of his helmet home to tell his family and the people at the village where he lived about being chased by the rhino, and how the angel of the Lord had said, "Your hat, your hat." And the missionary knew that would distract the rhino, and he would have time to get away. There was no other people out there on that path in Africa. It was just him and his guardian angel. And calling out, that hat made the missionary know just what to do. Our angels and our God are constantly there to help us, just like He helped steward the missionary in Africa. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.